All right, everybody, welcome back to the #1 television program in the history of the entire universe. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, The Blackest Heart, and The Lonesome Crown, all three books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today I'm going to be counting down my top 10 favorite female fantasy authors of the 1970s, 1980s, 1990s. I mean, those were the years that I was young, reading fantasy novels. Those were the years that I was dreaming of being a fantasy novelist myself. And a lot of these female authors that I was reading and collecting their books had a huge influence on everything that I am as a writer. And so I wanted to sort of do a top 10 list to honor those specific writers that influenced me. So the rules of this list are: female writers from the 70s, 80s, 90s, or anything beyond 2000. We're not. There's a lot of female writers that are excellent that wrote and published books. Their first book, anyway. We're talking about their first book. They published their first book after the 2000s. This is books pre-2000s. Books and writers, that's the first rule. The second rule is that they have to be authors, writers, that I still have books in my collection so I can hold them up, which means I'm going to leave out some authors that you guys will probably think were, maybe better authors or more influential or maybe your favorites. But this is my top 10 list of my favorite female authors from that generation. So, before we get to the top 10 list, as you know, I did want to include a handful of honorable mentions. They might not have made my top 10, but I certainly did read them when I was younger, and I wanted to include them on the list. So let's get to the first honorable mention, and that is going to be for Ursula, I don't know how to pronounce it, Ursula K. Le Guin in her Earth-Sea trilogy. Read them when I was younger. Don't remember a lot about them, but I do remember when I read them when I was younger, I was enchanted. And I'm going to do a reread of this trilogy soon. And another author that should have made my top 10, but just made the honorable mention, was Christine Catherine Rush. I did love her Fae series, what came out in the about mid-1990s. So Christine Catherine Rush gets a honorable mention. And then I also loved the Deborah Turner Harris trilogy that she wrote, starting with The Burning Stone. So Deborah Turner Harris gets an honorable mention. And these next two honorable mentions probably don't even belong on the list, but I wanted to include them because I thought they were dynamite. The first one is Kathleen O'Neill Geer. I know that she didn't necessarily write fantasy series, but she was probably one of the more influential writers that was a female that I would read back in the day. And so I wanted to include Kathleen O'Neill Geer because even though all of her stuff was kind of science fiction and space opera-y, I wanted to put her on the list. Probably didn't belong on the fantasy series list, but nothing here is like super official. And then I wanted to include Kristen Britton's Green Rider series, even though it came out in the year 2000. I broke the rule twice there. Anyway, her writing, I really enjoyed. So let's get to the top 20. No, I said top 10. It's a top 10 list, right? Or is it a top 20 list? We shall see. So, my top 10 favorite female writers of the 1970s, 1980s, 1990s, my top 10 favorite female writers, starting with, coming in at number 20, I'm going to go with Marion Zimmer Bradley, The Mists of Avalon. This is the only book I've ever read of hers. I really liked it. I was very enchanted by it as a youngster. One of the very first King Arthur books I ever read. And the cover by Brauld Braults is one of my favorite fantasy covers of all time. I love this book. I know this author has been a little controversial of late, but we won't get into that. Makes my top 10 list, coming in at number 20. Coming in at number 19, another lady that got her start in the mid to early 90s was Sarah Douglas with her Wayfarer Redemption series. Comes in at number 19. These books were pretty cool for someone who was my age when I read them. I just absolutely thought they were dynamite. Speaking of great books written by, this is just a great fantasy series by a fantasy author who is female about one of my favorite female characters in all of fantasy. And that's the sheep farmer's daughter. Elizabeth Moon comes in at number 18, one of our great female fantasy writers of the 80s. I think this book came out in 88 or 87, maybe 86. Don't know. Coming in at number 17, this person is a legend in the field. This writer was a legend, and that is Anne McCaffrey. Comes in at number 17 with her Pern books. Another great cover by Michael Whelan here. Just anything Michael Whelan touches just turns to gold. This is one of his more iconic paintings on the White Dragon. But Anne McCaffrey, I mean, you cannot argue with this pick. Another legend in the field. And I have about 50 novels in my collection from this writer. One of my favorite writers, both does great science fiction and great fantasy. And that is C.J. Cherryh. This is the beginning of one of her fantasy series. Like I said, she's got so many books you can choose from. Just a legend in the field. Absolutely magical series right here. This is The Fortress in the Eye of Time. I think there's about 5 or 6 other books in this series. And she's got so many other science fiction and fantasy. I think I mentioned that already. C.J. Cherryh, another legend. Oh my God, it never ends. My top 10 list literally never ends. Coming in at number 15 on my top 10 list is another tale about King Arthur that I read, which I quite liked a lot more than, not a lot more, I mean, the Mists of Avalon was fantastic, but the Mary Stuart Crystal Cave and her King Arthur books I was really young when I read these, and I just thought they were great. So Mary Stuart comes in at number 15 with her King Arthur's 4-book series. Another just fantastic author. And then this is when this one was. Now this author and this series I'm going to hold up. At one point in time in my life, I thought that this series that I'm going to hold up was the end-all, be-all of human literature. I thought for about a 3-year period in my young life that these books that I'm about to hold up and the writer that wrote them was the greatest piece of literature ever. And that is Margaret Weis with the Dragonlance Chronicles. Now, I do know that she collaborated with Tracy Hickman on this, but Margaret Weis was one of the most influential writers in my youth. The Dragonlance novels, I swear to you, for about 3 years of my young life, they were the epitome of high literature. And I just still feel so much nostalgia and love and fondness for everything about these, including the Michael Whelan. No, these are not Michael Whelan. This is Larry Elmore. Larry Elmore did these. But Margaret Weis went on to write some great science fiction and more fantasy books, just stacks of them. I've got them up here above my head on the shelf. One of my favorite female writers of the 80s, for sure. Coming in at number 13, and yes, this is... This series and this author did get her start in the late 1990s. And, my God, probably the best-selling author of all time. I'm thinking it might be the best-selling author of all time. And that's J.K. Rowling with the Harry Potter series. Yeah, the first book did come out in the 1990s, I believe. God, I hope so. 1997. Yes, it fits on my list. I don't have to make an excuse. J.K. Rowling, Harry Potter. I mean, I was a little older when I read those, but I wasn't a kid anymore. But another one that came out. This one might not belong on the list. This one might not belong on the list. I think it's breaking the rules a little bit. Yeah, this one's breaking the rules because I think it did come out after 2000. But that's still a beautifully written. Anyway, we'll edit the cough out. Jacqueline Carey, I think, was. I just realized this came out in 2001, I think. So, still a great female writer doing fantasy. But Jacqueline Carey, one of the most beautiful fantasy writers. I mean, just her language, the language she uses in her books is gorgeous. And I'm sure that she. Okay, we found a little bit of a workaround. I'm sure she was working on these books in the 90s. So we'll let it count. Might have been published in 2001, but I bet she started writing them in the 90s. These were definitely came out in the 90s because I remember reading them when I was in college, and that was in the 90s. And that is J.V. Jones, comes in at number 11 in my favorite female fantasy authors of the 70s, 80s, and 90s. J.V. Jones, great story. I mean, she's done several different fantasy series. Oh, and I met some of these people I've met and had them sign my books. I should probably show you. Anyway. Now for the top 10, for the real top 10. And I'm going to give, let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 of my top 10 books. My top 10 favorite female fantasy authors of the 70s and 80s and 90s. 7 of the 10, before I even get to showing them to you, were published by Daw Books. D-A-W Books. 7 of the 10 were published by Daw Books. So Daw Books had a huge influence on me when I was growing up. If it had that Daw sticker, you know, like there's Tor and Del Rey and Bantam Books, and Daw was the other one, and Ace Books. When I was young, I knew all those publishers, and whenever I saw a Daw book, I knew it was going to be up my alley, and I would always buy them. So coming in at number 10 is a Daw book author, and that is Mercedes Lackey. And she's just written hundreds of books, and they're all great. And this is my favorite series of hers, the Magic Pawns. What's it called? The Herald Mage, Last Herald Mage. But anyway, I'd done 2 or 3 book signings with Mercedes Lackey. So, I mean, I kind of know her. I mean, the last one I did with her was at the Kansas City Comic-Con during a rainstorm, and we went to get some barbecue in Kansas City in my old Dodge Challenger, and I drove a little too fast for her, and it freaked her out. But anyway, Mercedes Lackey, a spectacular author, published by Daw, one of my favorites that I grew up reading. We will put her in the top 10. Another Daw author is Michelle West, and she's got about 20 books in this series, the Sun Sword series or whatever. There's a lot of books in this series, but I remember picking this up in about the mid-90s too. I think I just graduated college when this one came out. But anyway, Michelle West comes in at number 9. Great writer. I love her writing style. Speaking of writing styles, which I love, that are unique and just blow me away, some of the sentences that this woman writes, some of the paragraphs, just the way she does description and stuff like that. And that's Janny Wirtz, Curse of the Mistrath. There's a Wars of Light and Shadow. There's how many books? They're up here. Now they're up there on the shelf. I think there's about 12 or 13 books in the series. I might be way off on that, though. But Janny Wirtz, she comes in at number 8 on my list. Excellent. Coming in at number 7 is Catherine Kurtz. Catherine Kurtz. I actually met Catherine Kurtz, too, at the convention, and she signed my books. Catherine Kurtz, the Dirini Chronicles. This is the Bishop's Heir, part of the Dirini series. Comes in at number 7. Just a fantastic writer. I mean, very atmospheric storytelling. You feel like you're in Wales and England in the 11th century or something, just reading the way she writes. It's just fantastic. And one of my favorite covers by Darrell K. Sweet is right there. So Catherine Kurtz. And then coming in at number 6, another Daw book, another Daw author. And this is a fantastic writer and a fantastic series. And that's C.S. Friedman. C.S. Friedman just blows me away with her writing. I've often said that if you like the style of writing that Frank Herbert put into the Dune novels, to me, C.S. Friedman comes the closest to that. Just whenever I read her prose, it really harkens back to Frank Herbert, in my opinion. She does a lot of science fiction and fantasy. One of my favorites comes in at number 6. Coming in at number 5, top 5, another Daw book author, and that is Mickey Zucker Reichert. Her Renshai series of, like, I don't know, 9 books or 12 books, I don't know. This is one of the books in the Renshai series. This is Beyond Ragnarok. Very Norse Viking-esque fantasy series. Bloody, grim, brilliant characters. Super well written. Very action-packed adventures. I love Mickey Zucker Reichert's writing style. Just great adventure novels. Now, this one is not published by Daw Books, but the rest will be. The rest on the list are. This is number 4. This is published by Bantam Spectra, and that is Robin Hobb. Yeah, hers came out in the late 90s. The Realm of the Elderlings got its start with The Assassin's Apprentice in the 90s. And again, we've got another great Michael Whelan painting. You know, Michael Whelan also did the C.S. Friedman books. But what an amazing series, and what an amazing author. And I've also met Robin Hobb. Hooray! So Robin Hobb gets a nod, and that's we're to the top 3, and they are all They're all female authors published by Daw Books. And I will be going with and I want to, you know what, I'm gonna, you know what, towards the end I'm gonna show you a little surprise. Don't let me forget. Remind me, because these 3 authors have something in common, and I need to show it to you. So Jennifer Robertson is my number 3 favorite female author of the 70s, 80s, and 90s. She did 2 of my favorite fantasy series. This is her Tiger and Dell, book number 1, Sword Dancer. She also did the Chesulu, I don't know how to pronounce that. She also did that fantasy series. Those were very influential to me. So Jennifer Robertson comes in at number 3. A Daw book coming in at number 2. Another Daw book author, and that is Melanie Ron. Her Dragon Prince series, oh my gosh, just so delicious. Everything about it. I mean, just the landscape that she sets these books about these dragons and all these characters. It's just like, it really kind of is like the American West, the Rocky Mountains, but with dragons. I mean, it's just fantastic. We've got the deserts, we've got the high alpine mountains, we've got all these great characters running around, a super cool magic system, and the most badass dragons. These are my favorite dragons, I think, in any fantasy series, and that is the Dragon Prince coming in at number 2. So we've got that. And then my number 1 favorite female author from the 70s, 80s, and 90s is Kate Elliott. She comes in at number 1. She's my favorite. Especially this series, the Crown of Stars. Yes, it is the Crown of Stars. Sometimes I forget. It's got a great Jody Lee painting. You know, that Mercedes Lackey book also had a spectacular Jody Lee painting. Where is it? Anyway, it's down there somewhere. I showed it to you earlier. Just back up the video, watch it. The King's Dragon is book number 1 in her 7-book series. She's got another science fiction series called The Duran that I loved back in the day. And there's she was just my favorite author, female author of the time. I mean, it's just, she came in at number 1. What more do I have to say? Well, I did promise you something. there is something about, now, I had Kate Elliott sign my book when I met her. I had Melanie Ron sign my book. So, and even more spectacular, I'm going to take this down to show it to you, because it's kind of hidden back here behind this. But this is a book called The Golden Key. My top 3 favorite female authors of the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Melanie Ron, Jennifer Robertson, and Kate Elliott collaborated on this magnificent book called The Golden Key with another spectacular Michael Whelan painting. So these 3 authors that finished in my top 10 at 1, 2, and 3 collaborated on this book. And I think they did it specifically for me. I think they did it with me in mind. But anyway, the thing I wanted to show you is I've met all 3 of these wonderful writers, and they all 3 signed my book. And this was at the World Fantasy Convention in Tempe, Arizona in the year 2004 or 5 when I met them, and they signed all that together. Just, that was the surprise at the end of the video. Anyway, I hope you liked the video. There's my top 3. We'll hold them up again if my hands will fit. There's my top 3 and their collaboration. And this might be one of my top 10 favorite videos I've actually ever made. So if you liked it, give me a like. If you can think of other female writers from that era that you love that I didn't ever read or didn't collect, drop a note. Let us know who they are. And let's just celebrate all these great fantasy series by all these great writers. Hallelujah.